injury away from this league, going back to pre-2024, not 2023, but lower than everything lower than 2024. Like, we all know this league is nowhere near as culturally relevant right now.
The uncomfortable truth is this: the WNBA is one major Caitlin Clark injury away from sliding back to where it was before the recent boom. That is not exaggeration. It is the reality shaping every move in the current collective bargaining agreement negotiations. What we are witnessing right now is the most dangerous standoff in the league's history, with both sides refusing to blink. The league knows this problem exists. However, the players' response has raised concerns. Instead of projecting unity and professionalism, many players have been reposting messages about striking and labor protests. The CBA officially expired at midnight on January 31st, and the Players Association made it clear they were prepared to walk away. They publicly claimed they had shown flexibility, while accusing the league of refusing to compromise. From the outside, though, it looks more like a hard demand followed by silence. What makes this even more alarming is how quickly attention has vanished. Major sports shows are no longer talking about women's basketball. ESPN barely mentioned Paige Buecher scoring 44 points. In January 2025, the only WNBA story that broke through the noise was Caitlin Clark's first game in the unrivaled league and speculation about her possibly joining the Liberty. That was it. In just 6 months, the WNBA went from a cultural moment to something many fans stopped noticing. This matters because the Players Association allowed the CBA to expire without a safety net. They staged symbolic protests, including placing an inflatable rat outside the NBA store in New York, and openly discussed the possibility of a strike. Meanwhile, the league's message has been consistent and blunt. The current demands are not financially sustainable. From the players' perspective, the strategy is clear. They want to use every ounce of leverage they have to secure higher pay. In theory, that makes sense. You push as hard as you can, as long as you do not push so far that the season collapses. Games can be moved. Arenas can be reshuffled. None of that matters if a season still happens. The real danger is when games stop entirely. Right now, in this game of chicken, the owners appear to be holding the stronger position. So what are the players asking for? They want revenue sharing equal to 30% of total league revenue, rather than a fixed salary cap that increases by 5% each year, which is what the league offered. They want a system that rises and falls annually based on financial performance. The league has rejected that outright, and here is why it gets complicated. The WNBA does not operate like the NBA. Many teams are independently owned and face very different operating costs. The league itself does not control enough centralized revenue to guarantee a fluctuating revenue-sharing model. When players use phrases like pay equity, it sounds progressive and powerful, but it ignores the financial structure that currently exists. Simply put, the math does not work. Now imagine a worst-case scenario. If the league shuts down, only a small group of stars would realistically survive financially. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Paige Buecher, Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, Aya Wilson, and Nafisa Collier could carry independent leagues or attract fans on their own. Everyone else would struggle. From a business standpoint, there are maybe 6 or 7 players whose personal brands matter more than their team's brand. That sounds harsh, but it is reality. Take the Connecticut Sun as an example. You could replace their entire roster with former UConn players who are not currently in the league, and attendance would likely stay the same. Viewership would not change much. The team brand matters more than individual names for most franchises. This is why the real question is not whether there will be a 2026 season. The real question is whether this league can survive at all. And when you ask who has more to lose if it collapses, it is hard to argue that the players do not carry the bigger risk. That does not mean players should accept a bad deal. If the offer is unfair, they should absolutely push back. They should fight for every dollar possible. But there is a line where leverage turns into self-destruction. The nightmare scenario keeps everyone awake at night. If players' striking games are missed, the 2025 season could be delayed or canceled. Sponsors would leave because there is no product to support. Television partners would renegotiate or walk away. Small market teams that already lose money would shut down. The dominoes would fall quickly. Some players believe they could start their own league or join an alternative. But the numbers tell a different story. Unrivaled, despite massive investment and hype, finished last in primetime ratings for its target audience. Even with Caitlin Clark fueling interest and a rush deal with TNT, it failed to gain traction. The money simply is not there elsewhere. This brings us to leverage, which is where the players may be misreading the situation. They are acting as if the league needs all of them equally. It does not. The league needs Caitlin Clark healthy and playing. That is the center of the entire calculation. If Caitlin Clark suffered a major injury tomorrow, revenue projections would collapse. Attendance would fall back to pre-boom levels. Television deals would shrink. The salary cap could drop from $1.3 million to $600,000 under the very system players are demanding. At that point, sustainability disappears anyway. The league knows this. The owners know it. And deep down, the players know it too. That is why this moment is so dangerous. Both sides are risking the future of women's professional basketball in a negotiation where neither can afford to lose. I am genuinely worried the players may be pushing too far. Still, I will not criticize them until games are actually missed. That is the line. Once basketball stops, everyone loses. I think the players may be pushing their position too far, at least until an actual game is missed. I fully support players doing everything they can to earn the highest pay possible. They deserve to fight for better compensation. But the moment one game is canceled, the situation changes completely. At that point, it is no longer just about negotiations. It becomes about survival. If games start getting canceled and the season falls apart, the league itself is in serious danger. And if the WNBA disappears, the future of women's professional basketball in the United States becomes very unclear. Other leagues are not strong enough to replace it. Unrivaled, in particular, is already struggling and is likely to fail. That is why this moment matters so much. What needs to happen is actually simple, even if it is difficult. The players need to recognize that a fixed salary cap with guaranteed yearly increases is safer than a revenue-sharing model tied to a league that may not exist in a few years. At the same time, the league needs to offer enough money so players do not feel exploited while others profit from their work. Unfortunately, instead of real progress, we are seeing public protests, symbolic gestures, and statements about being undervalued, while both sides refuse to move as the deadline approaches. The Players Association often says it deeply values the fans and takes pride in honoring them every time players step on the court. That sounds good, but it is mostly public relations language. In reality, most players do not truly care about individual fans. They care about fan spending. And to be fair, most owners are the same way. They also care about fan money. That is how professional sports works. The key difference is power. Owners can survive without the WNBA. Most of them are extremely wealthy and have money invested in many other businesses. The players do not have that luxury. For them, this league is not a side project. It is their income, their career, and their future. They are risking everything on a strategy that is weaker than they believe. What makes this situation especially frustrating is that the players are not wrong about one major thing. They absolutely deserve more money. The league saw huge growth in 2024. Attendance increased. Television ratings climbed. Merchandise sales exploded. Caitlin Clark's jersey even outsold nearly every NBA player for a period of time. The players helped create that value, and they should benefit from it. However, the way they are approaching this could destroy the very progress they helped build. You cannot demand 30% revenue sharing from a league that has operated at a loss for most of its history. You cannot threaten work stoppages when the league's popularity depends heavily on one star staying healthy. And you cannot pretend you hold all the leverage when alternative leagues are already showing they cannot survive on their own. The Players Association claims the league is damaging fan trust by refusing to change. But there is a question no one wants to face. If the league shuts down and only 6 or 7 star players continue playing while everyone else is replaced, do most fans really care? If you kept the Connecticut Sun brand but replaced every player, would attendance drop in a meaningful way? 4 teams without a major star, would fans even notice? The uncomfortable answer is probably no. Most fans are not attending games because of individual players. They come for their local team and the experience of watching professional women's basketball. That is why the league has more leverage than it appears. The league brand has value. Team identities matter in their cities. Most individual players from a business standpoint are replaceable. That does not diminish their talent or their value as people. It is simply economic reality. Now consider what actually happens if games are missed. Not delayed but cancelled. Players believe this will pressure the league to surrender. In reality, the opposite happens. Sponsors start demanding refunds. Television partners renegotiate contracts. Casual fans who just became interested in 2024 lose interest and move on. They are not emotionally invested enough to follow a labor dispute. Worst of all, the story changes. Right now, the WNBA is seen as growing and exciting. A strike flips that story into one about instability and risk. Once that perception sets in, it does not go away. Players say they are willing to do whatever it takes. But are they willing to lose millions? For many players, missing a full season means losing a significant portion of their lifetime basketball income. Miss 1 year and that money is gone forever. If the league collapses, everything is lost. Overseas leagues will not suddenly double salaries, and new leagues have not proven they can survive. In negotiations, both sides must be able to walk away. Owners can. Players cannot. Yet the players are negotiating as if they have equal power, which they do not. The smartest move would be to accept a fixed salary cap with guaranteed yearly increases, claim progress, and renegotiate in a few years when there is clearer proof that recent growth is sustainable. But that likely will not happen because this situation is being treated like an NBA negotiation, even though the WNBA does not have NBA-level leverage. There are 3 possible outcomes. 1. The players accept a slightly better deal at the last minute and move on. 2. They strike briefly, lose public support, and accept a worse deal later. 3. The season collapses, the league folds, and women's professional basketball in America disappears for a generation. The most likely outcome is the first. Eventually, the players will realize that the alternative to the WNBA is not another league. It is no league at all. Still, the fact that the worst outcome is even possible shows how fragile the league remains. The WNBA had its best year ever in 2024. The future finally looked bright. And now, only months later, we are debating whether the league will survive. That alone should make everyone pause.